Good afternoon, Arthur.
Good afternoon, Nick. Very good to see you.
My pleasure, and yeah, I express my gratitude for your time and your willingness to contribute, Arthur. So really appreciate. How are you? How is it going?
Yes, very well. It's quite a warm day in South London at the moment. As they promised, the sun's come out and we're getting a real July sunshine today.
Very true, very true. We take advantage today of this amazing sun. Very warm day. Arthur, I had the luck to meet you through the School of Philosophy and Economic Science. So generally, we start the interview allowing the person to introduce, as I'm sure you would do it better than I do. So I just know you are in the school from decades, like more than 5 decades. I'm a student, and you are a student too in the same class. And so I thought, it, in terms of emotional intelligence, what Arthur can share is of very high value. So let's kick off. I'll ask you to introduce yourself, say what you did in the past, what you do today, and I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Nick. I was born in London in 1937. When I was 2 years old, the war started, the Second World War, and we became evacuees, so we had to leave our home in London, go to a tiny village in Huntingdonshire. That's where I spent my childhood. And then when the war ended, we went to join my father in Leicester, and I attended a grammar school there, got very interested in languages, and that took me to Cambridge University, where I took the degree in modern languages tripos. After that, I came to London to teach, and that's where I encountered the School of Philosophy, and joined as soon as I could, because I knew it was something that I'd been looking for since I was a child, some place that would actually deliver the truth and not skate on the surface only. Since that time then, so I joined the school in 1960. I remember it very clearly, January 1960. So that's now what, 60, I don't know, 64, 65 years that I've been in the school. And I'm still a student, as you say, and enjoying it very much. I was at my philosophy group last night. We had a wonderful time there. There's always something new, something fresh, because the truth knows no limits. It's an absolute, so there's no end to it. You can never say, I've got the truth in my pocket. It's not like that. You can get a little bit of it, but there's more and more and more. And it's not just truth in the abstract, it's truth as a living reality, as joy, as goodness, as friendship, as service, as love. It's really a beautiful situation. So contemporary with that, I taught in the state system, I taught in the independent system. I also taught for 10 years English to overseas students. In a way, that was my favorite. They were all adults, they were all well motivated, and they all loved English, and we got on like a house on fire. Since that time, I became a private tutor at home. Also got married, of course, very early on, got married in 1961. Then we had a family of 5 children. My wife died 10 years ago, although I feel she's always with me, never absent. Her presence is always here. So we get on well together. I think that's probably enough by way of introduction.
I'm sure you framed everything you did in yeah, 90 years, almost 90 years, very very briefly, Arthur, and thank you for that. You mentioned a couple of times the word love. We are here today. The purpose of this interview is to bring awareness about emotions and intellect, and how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. And how important it is to connect the two. by knowing yourself. Know yourself is something that at the school we oftentimes, probably every meeting, we reiterate. So how important is self-knowing in relation
Self-knowing,
to...
self-knowing is crucial. This goes back, as far as we know, to the temple at Delphi in ancient Greece. Know thyself. But how does one know oneself? This is the question, isn't it? Even if we take this on board, that it's really important, how does one do this? What's the pathway? One pathway is through the word love that you mentioned, or that I've mentioned. If you love yourself, that's a sure way of coming to know yourself too. You know, many people today, they don't fully love themselves. They criticize themselves. They find fault. They say, I've done so many things wrong in my life. Well, so have I. I've done many things wrong. But still, in spite of that, you come to love yourself. You know, if you don't love yourself, you're not really going to love other people. When you love yourself, then you can open your heart to everyone, to everything, and be of use to mankind, be of use to the universe, and be of use to your true self as well through this love. So I think love is a key actually to opening the way to self-knowledge. How do you know yourself? Try it through love, loving yourself first, then loving everyone you meet, even the people that you don't particularly like.
Especially those.
Especially, there's still a way of actually loving them. I heard recently of a man who used to be my tutor in the school, and apparently just before his death, he said, I've learned that I must love everyone. So that was the sort of culmination of his life. And I think it's a very good point to take in. Love everyone, even if you don't actually like them. Embrace them.
It's a great advice, great piece of advice. Thank you, Arthur. We are talking about self-knowing, and I agree with you. When you finish, as you said, and it's very motivational for me as a younger, being a student and see you still a student gives me a sense of tranquility. I likely never know myself completely. I'm gonna know myself in degrees, and the pathway is long, pleasant, and plenty of discoveries as well. So if you would give an advice or a suggestion to entrepreneurs, business people, why it's useful to know yourself personally and professionally, why this self-knowledge is important.
This is because when you know yourself, you have a very good chance of knowing other people too. I think this is important if you're running a business. I've never been interested in running businesses, but you know, take care of your staff from the highest to the lowest, or from the lowest to the highest. Take care of your staff. Say good morning to the cleaner. Take an interest in the cleaner's life and his or her work. Are they happy in the organization? Is there any way you could make the cleaner's life better at work? And so start with what we call the humblest person in the organization. Start there. Make sure you greet your staff, if you can, every single morning in person, and take a real interest in their life, in their work. Don't sit in an ivory tower saying, I'm the boss. The others can get on with it. I'm paying them enough. Let them do their job. Show an interest. Show the love for them that you would like if you were in their position. This is a way of coming to know yourself in other people, because other people are a reflection of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see that reflection, you naturally love it. You want to look after it, take care of it. And in taking care of it, you actually get the best out of your employees. And if you ignore them, if you treat them like dirt, then they will only give you grudgingly what is their worst. They won't give you their best. And love them and take an interest in them. See them as reflections of yourself.
There's a very, I mean, I'm surprised that from your perspective, never being into businesses, you actually said things that are at the core of managing a company or a corporate. Always care about the human being and not watching about the status in the company, but as humans. We are all the same human, despite of the role, the salary, and whatever. Get genuine interest. Arthur, I really welcome your comment. And we mentioned how important is to care about the people and yourself as well. Learn how to care about yourself, how to love yourself, how to respect yourself as well. So I would like to give something practical, like to the people that are listening to us. What pathways you can suggest in order to get to know yourself? It might be philosophy, might be coaching or courses. What would you suggest to them?
There are various practices. One practice is simply becoming quiet. It's called a pause. So one simply comes to rest, comes to stillness. Just for 2 or 3 minutes, you find a quietness which is always within your heart, but may be covered over by the rush of events. So just come to stillness. You know, when I was a young man, there was or a boy even, there was a radio program, and it began with the noise of a London street, all the sounds of a London street, all the traffic and the buses and the taxis and the boys and men selling newspapers and all. It was a real racket. And then there was a police whistle blown. And then a voice said, once again, we stop the noise of London. And at that point, everything became really quiet. And I think this is a good practice. You stop the noise within your own heart, within your own head. You just come to rest, come to stillness. It takes a little practice. It takes a little bit of resolve, but it really pays off. If you come to stillness, come to rest, then from that stillness, from that peace in your own being, you can then look out and see what the situation is, deal with others as you would be dealt with yourself, treat them fairly and justly from that still point. So that's a lovely practice. Another practice which I've hinted at previously is to see others as yourself, as reflections of yourself. So from the stillness, from the pause, then see everyone as a reflection of yourself. In fact, it's no different from yourself. These take time to be implemented, but they're really well worth it.
I love it, Arthur. And I will take advantage today to share something I professionally use. It's like a mantra. This combination of words is calmness, clarity, and courage. And I advise my clients when you're about to take a decision, the first thing you need is calmness. So from a calm mind and a calm heart, you can gain clarity then. So you can see the right decision. Once you see the decision, you're gonna need some courage to make it happen. How would you comment this?
Well, I totally agree with that. And this is what I found in various stages of my own life, particularly when I was a teenager coming up towards the 20s, and decisions had to be made. And what I found was exactly what you're saying, from the calmness. What I used to do, Nick, I used to study very hard at school, but every so often I would take myself to the cinema to see a film. And it wasn't really that I wanted to see the film. I just wanted everything to settle down. And then when the film was over, say at 10 o'clock at night, I would just quietly walk home. It would take about 40 minutes to walk home. And during that time, the mind became very quiet, very calm, very relaxed. And in that situation, one could see like a bifurcation of the way, where the way splits into two, and there's a decision, you go to the left fork or you go to the right fork. And if the mind is agitated, it can't make a clear and strong decision. But when it's at rest, when it's got this clarity that you mentioned, then it is known you go left or you go right. It's very clear, even though some part of you will tell you, your friends or even your family will be horrified by this decision. This has happened to me a number of times, and I always knew it was the right decision. And it took the courage to follow it, as you say, because indeed, friends and family didn't think very much of my decision. They were against it. But in the long run, it proved to be right. So yes, the calmness, the clarity, the courage are all needed.
Thanks for your comment, Arthur. Really appreciate, and again, it's motivational and reassuring as well to acknowledge that is a good methodology. We start from being calm, we gain clarity, and then with a bit of courage, we make it happen. Arthur, I wanted to ask, let's talk about education, public education. Do you think introducing mindfulness or even practical philosophy from very early stage of growth, it can be beneficial, or it could be beneficial for the kids and the next teenagers?
Yes, I do. I mean, we have not quite a crisis, I suppose, but we have a lot of difficulties in the educational world at the moment, and particularly with teenagers. You know, the suicide rate for teenagers is increasing alarmingly. But this comes about really through the from the very early years. Plato, whom I studied quite a lot, he says that right from the very beginning, indeed from prior to birth, so soon after conception, this process should start. He calls it gymnastic and music. What we did with our children, certainly 4 of them before they were born, I'm not sure it applied to the eldest, we weren't quite ready at that time, but for 4 of them, before they were born, we chanted prayers. My wife and I, we just chanted prayers every day over these fetuses, as they're called. And I've no doubt at all that these practices, either prior to birth or soon after birth, are very important in guiding the child on a good pathway of honesty, goodness, and love, because the child will grow up with whatever foundations have been given to it in those very early years. This is what Plato makes abundantly clear. So music and gymnastic. Music for Plato includes all the arts, you know, poetry, writing, singing, dancing, painting, sculpture, all of them. And gymnastic includes all kinds of movement. And Marsilio Ficino, whom I've studied for now 51 years, as you know, he picks this up too, and he says, you know, the movements of riding a horse, the movements of being in a boat on a lake, these are so important to your balance in life. And if children can, you know, children that ride ponies when they're very young, it's great. Or if they can go on a boat, on a yacht, or just a little rowing boat, it makes a big difference. So yes, it's vital to get this in at the early stages of life.
And if I get you, the sooner the better. Yeah.
Sooner the better.
The
Yes.
sooner the better. Arthur, 20 minutes today just flew. I was listening so attentively. I really enjoyed the conversation. We are heading towards the end. Before to say goodbye for today, what is your piece of advice to those people that are seeking for well-being and they want to check inside rather than outside?
Well, it's very strange, Nick. You've seen an interview that I gave in Delphi 9 years ago. And prior to that, Phyllis and I, we had an interview in Malta. And at the end of those interviews, they asked the same question that you're asking. What advice would you give? Can you put it in a short statement? And my wife initially gave the answer in Malta, and also and then I repeated that in Delphi. And I'm going to repeat it again now.
Oh, yes, please.
Because these are the words of Marsilio Ficino, who was a 15th century philosopher priest. And what he said was, in English, 4 words: rejoice in the present. Rejoice in the present. So if you're in the present, you're present. If you're rejoicing, you're in joy. That means you know yourself, or at least some aspect of yourself. That means you can help other people in your work, in your daily life. So rejoice in the present.
Thank you, Arthur. It's amazing. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm quite sure it's not going to be the last interview we do together. Yeah, still plenty of questions, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I thank you for today, and wish you a good continuation of your evening. Thank you once again, Arthur.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you.